There are two tiny bumps on your keyboard, and they control how fast you can type. Right now, place your fingers on your keyboard. Don't look, just feel. Move your index fingers slowly across the keys, and suddenly, you'll notice something strange. Two tiny bumps, one on the F key, one on the J key. They're small, barely noticeable. But once you feel them, you can't unfeel them. Now here's the question. Why are they there? Most people never think about it. They just exist on almost every keyboard in the world. Laptops, desktops, office keyboards, gaming setups, even keyboards you've never used before. And yet, those tiny bumps might be one of the most important design features ever created, because without them, typing as you know it would feel completely different. So what do these bumps actually do, and why only F and J? To understand that, we need to start with something you probably do every day, without even realizing how complex it really is. Think about how you type. You're probably not looking at every key. In fact, if you're like most people, you're barely looking at the keyboard at all. Your eyes are on the screen, your fingers just move, almost automatically. Letters appear, words form, sentences flow, it feels effortless. But here's the surprising truth. Typing is actually one of the most complex motor skills you use every day. Your brain is coordinating 10 fingers simultaneously, each hitting precise locations, on a grid of more than 100 keys, without looking. So how does your brain keep track of where everything is? How does it know where your fingers are at all times? The answer lies in something most people never notice. Not what you see, but what you feel. To understand modern keyboards, we have to go back to typewriters, long before laptops and computers. People learned to type on mechanical machines, and typing back then wasn't casual. It was a trained skill. Schools taught something called touch typing. The goal was simple: type quickly, without ever looking at the keyboard. Students would sit in rows, hands positioned carefully, eyes forward, and they would practice for hours. But there was a problem. Without looking down, how do you know where your fingers are? How do you avoid getting lost? So designers introduced a simple idea. Give typists a way to feel their position. Not see it, feel it. And that's where the bumps were born. On a standard keyboard, there's a special row of keys. It's called the home row, A, S, D, F, and J, K, L. This is where your fingers are supposed to rest. From this position, your fingers can reach every other key. Up, down, left, right, and then return back home. But there's a catch. If you lose your position, everything falls apart. Typing slows down, mistakes increase. Your brain has to stop and look down, which breaks your flow. So designers needed a way to anchor your hands, and they chose two keys, F and J. Why those two? Because they sit exactly under your index fingers, the most active fingers in typing. So by adding tiny bumps, they created a reference point. A physical marker your fingers can feel instantly, no thinking required. Here's where it gets interesting. The bumps don't guide your entire hand. They do something smarter. They guide just enough. The moment your fingers touch the bumps, your brain instantly knows I'm in the right place. From there, everything else becomes relative. This is called tactile feedback. Your sense of touch is incredibly precise. In fact, your fingers can detect tiny differences in texture almost instantly, faster than your eyes can process visual information. So instead of relying on sight, keyboards rely on touch, and this creates a powerful effect. You can type in the dark, you can type without looking, you can type while thinking about something else, because your fingers always know where home is, all thanks to two tiny bumps. There's also a deeper psychological layer. When your brain doesn't have to think about finger placement, it frees up mental space. This is called cognitive offloading. Instead of focusing on how to type, you focus on what to type. Ideas flow faster. Thoughts become smoother. This is why experienced typists can write quickly without hesitation. Their brain isn't distracted by the keyboard. The bumps help create that effect. They remove uncertainty, and uncertainty is what slows people down. Without those bumps, your brain would constantly question, am I in the right place? That tiny doubt would break your rhythm. So the bumps don't just guide your fingers, they protect your flow state. Try this experiment. Close your eyes, place your hands on a keyboard, but start slightly off position. Now type something. You'll notice something immediately. It feels wrong. Your fingers hesitate. Mistakes appear instantly, because without a reference point, your brain loses its map. This is exactly what the bumps prevent. They act like a GPS for your fingers. Even if your hands move slightly, a quick touch brings you back. Without them, typing would feel slower, less accurate, and more frustrating. Even as technology evolves, the bumps remain. From old mechanical keyboards, to ultra-thin laptops, to gaming keyboards with RGB lighting, the F and J bumps are still there. Why? Because the design is already perfect. It's simple, cheap, and incredibly effective. Even touchscreen keyboards try to replicate this idea, using vibration or sound feedback. Because designers know something important. Humans don't just interact with technology through sight. We rely on touch just as much. And sometimes, touch is even more powerful. The next time you place your fingers on a keyboard, pause for a second, feel those tiny bumps. They're easy to ignore, almost invisible, but they're doing something incredible. They're guiding your hands without you even thinking about it. They're turning a complex task into something effortless. And they're a reminder of something powerful. The best designs aren't always the ones you notice. They're the ones you don't have to think about at all. Because sometimes, the smallest details make the biggest difference. Most people never realize this, so here's a quick challenge. Can you guess why this next one exists? Look closely at your nail cutter. Not the blades, not the lever, the tiny hole at the back. It's always there. On cheap cutters, on premium ones, on old designs, on modern designs. And yet, almost nobody knows why it exists. It's too deliberate to be decoration, too universal to be an accident, and too small to seem important. But that tiny hole solves multiple hidden problems, mechanical, behavioral, and even psychological. Today, we're breaking down why nail cutters have that small hole, what problem it was actually designed to solve, and why removing it would quietly make the tool worse. Once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. Nail cutters are one of the most deceptively simple tools ever made. 2 blades, 1 lever, a squeeze motion, that's it. No electronics, no moving parts you can't see, no instructions required, which makes the small hole confusing. Because if something survives decades of manufacturing across countries, price ranges, and brands, it means someone, somewhere, needed it. And not just once, but enough times that manufacturers kept it forever. Designers don't add holes just in case. Every hole weakens the structure, adds manufacturing steps, requires quality control, so if the hole stayed, it earned its place. The question is, what problem does it solve? Most people say, it's for a keychain. And yes, you can put a key ring through it. But here's the issue. Keychain use explains why the hole exists, but not why it's placed exactly there, not why the size is so specific, and not why the hole appeared in early cutter designs before keychains were common. If it were only for hanging, it could be larger, it could be centered, it could be optional, yet it's always small, offset, structurally aligned, so keychains are a side benefit, not the original reason. To understand the real reason, we have to look at how nail cutters work mechanically. A nail cutter isn't a scissor, it's a compound lever system. When you press down, your finger applies force to the lever multiplies that force. The force is redirected downward, the blades close with much more pressure than your finger alone could produce. This means tiny alignment errors matter. If the 2 blades twist, flex unevenly, shift sideways, you don't get a clean cut, you get crushed nails, jagged edges, pain. Now here's the problem early nail cutter designers faced. How do you keep 2 tiny blades perfectly aligned under repeated stress? using the least material possible. The answer wasn't thicker metal, it was stress control. And that's where the hole enters the story.
The real reason 1. Stress distribution.
That small hole acts as a stress relief point. When you squeeze a nail cutter, the blades experience compression. The body experiences torsion. The pivot area experiences the highest stress concentration. Without a relief point, metal fatigue builds up exactly where cracks form. The hole interrupts stress lines, prevents micro cracks from spreading, extends the lifespan of the cutter. This is the same principle used in aircraft panels, bridge joints, high-stress machine components. Engineers often remove material to make something stronger. It sounds backward, but it works. Without that hole, the back end becomes a stress trap. Cracks propagate faster. Blades lose alignment over time, so the hole quietly keeps your cutter sharper, straighter, safer. Every single time you clip.
The real reason 2. Manufacturing precision.
There's another hidden benefit. That hole acts as a manufacturing reference point. During mass production, parts must be aligned consistently. Machines need reference geometry. Quality control needs quick verification. The hole allows precise jig placement, consistent blade alignment, faster defect detection. Without it, each cutter would require more inspection. Costs would rise. Variations would increase. So that tiny hole saves time. Money reject rates, which is why every manufacturer keeps it, even premium brands. It's invisible efficiency.
The real reason 3. User behavior.
Design isn't just about physics. It's about how humans behave. People drop nail cutters. People lose nail cutters. People leave nail cutters in bathrooms, bags, drawers, and travel kits. The hole enables hanging, tethering, easy retrieval. But more importantly, it signals portability. Subconsciously, the hole tells your brain, this is a personal object. That's why people attach them to kits. Travelers keep them. Grooming sets include them. It increases perceived ownership, and objects we feel ownership over get used more often. Notice something strange? The hole is too small for most fingers, too large to be structural noise, almost perfectly standardized. That's because it's optimized for stress relief without weakening. Standard key rings, manufacturing drills. Any larger, the body weakens. Any smaller, stress relief fails. Utility drops. It's a design sweet spot, not accidental, not aesthetic, just enough. Some modern minimalist cutters try. And here's what happens. They feel stiffer. They wear unevenly. They lose alignment faster. They're harder to mass produce. They look cleaner. They perform worse, which is why most eventually add it back. Because invisible features are often the most important ones. The most brilliant designs don't ask for attention. They disappear. You don't notice the hole, the curve, the alignment. You just notice it works. That's the highest compliment a design can get. And that's why you never questioned it, until now. That tiny hole on your nail cutter isn't decoration. It's structural intelligence, manufacturing efficiency, human behavior design, a solution hiding in plain sight. So next time you clip your nails, remember, if something this small hides this much thought, what else have you been using your whole life, without ever really seeing it? Pretty smart, right? But wait till you see this, because this next one will completely change how you see it. Pick up a pair of scissors. Any scissors. School scissors, kitchen scissors, office scissors. Now look at the handles. One hole is big, the other is small. You've used scissors thousands of times, but you've probably never asked, why? Why not two equal holes? Why not one long handle? Why not circles of the same size? This design exists everywhere, across countries, across decades, across brands. And here's the strange truth: that uneven handle shape is doing far more work than the blades themselves. It controls power, precision, safety, and how your hand moves. Once you understand this, you'll never hold scissors the same way again. This tiny detail controls how scissors cut. If both scissor holes were the same size, you would lose up to 40% cutting efficiency and significantly more hand fatigue. That uneven handle isn't style, it's biomechanics. Scissors are ancient. Long before modern tools, humans needed a way to cut fabric, animal hides, hair, rope. Early scissors didn't look like the ones you use today. They were spring-based. Two blades connected by a curved metal strip. You squeezed them together. They worked, but poorly. They lacked control, precision, power. As cutting tasks became more detailed, tailoring, surgery, writing tools, people needed something better. That's when pivot scissors appeared. Two blades, one pivot point, rotating motion. And that's when a new problem emerged. The blades were sharp, but hands weren't optimized to use them. People got tired, cuts were inaccurate, hands cramped. So the problem wasn't the blade, it was how humans interact with the tool. And that's when the handle design changed everything. Scissors face a unique challenge. They require two opposite actions at the same time. Strength, precision, most tools focus on one. A hammer needs force. A pen needs precision. Scissors need both simultaneously. Let's break down the hidden problems. Problem first, unequal finger strength. Your fingers are not equal. Your thumb moves differently than your fingers. It pushes sideways. Your fingers pull inward. This creates imbalance. If both holes were the same size, your thumb would struggle, the blades would twist, cuts would become inaccurate. Problem second, control versus power. When cutting, the thumb controls motion, the fingers generate force. These roles are not interchangeable. Giving both sides equal handles creates conflict. One side needs freedom, the other needs stability. Problem third, fatigue. Try cutting thick cardboard with equal handles. Your hand tires fast, your grip slips, your wrist compensates. Bad design forces muscles to work unnaturally. Scissors solve this problem quietly, through asymmetry. Here's the key idea. Scissors are designed around how the human hand actually moves, not how it looks. The small hole, thumb side. The smaller hole is for your thumb. Your thumb moves independently, pushes outward, rotates differently. It doesn't need space. It needs control. A smaller hole locks the thumb in place, prevents over-rotation, increases precision. That's why detail scissors often have even smaller thumb holes. The big hole, finger side. The larger hole is for multiple fingers. Usually, index finger, middle finger, sometimes ring finger. These fingers provide power, pull inward together, need leverage. A larger hole distributes force, reduces pressure points, prevents fatigue. This side is the engine. The thumb side is the steering wheel. Why not two big holes? Two big holes remove control. The scissors wobble, the blades misalign, cuts become messy. Why not two small holes? Two small holes restrict power. Your fingers can't work together. You lose cutting strength. So the design creates role separation. One side controls, one side powers. That's the hidden genius. Now let's talk about the screw in the middle. That pivot point turns your hand motion into cutting force. The handle shape ensures force moves toward the pivot, blades stay aligned, pressure increases near the cutting point because the finger side has more leverage. The blade connected to it presses harder. This creates a shearing action instead of crushing. That's why scissors slice cleanly. If both handles were equal, pressure distribution fails, paper folds instead of cuts, fabric snags. The hole sizes indirectly control blade physics. This design also improves safety. Your hand naturally knows which side is up, which side controls motion, you don't have to think. That's why even children instinctively hold scissors correctly. Asymmetry guides behavior. Also, bigger hole prevents finger strain, smaller thumb hole reduces slipping, control improves accuracy, accidental cuts reduce. This isn't just design, it's human-centered engineering. Now here's something interesting. Left-handed scissors flip the design. Why? Because left-handed cutting reverses force direction. If a left-handed person uses right-handed scissors, blades separate, visibility reduces, cuts become uneven, so left-handed scissors mirror the handle sizes, reverse blade overlap, same logic, different orientation. Proof that the design isn't arbitrary, it's precise. Look at modern scissors. Fabric scissors, kitchen scissors, surgical scissors, different sizes, different shapes. But the rule remains, one hole big, one hole small. Even ergonomic designs follow this logic. Some ADD, rubber grips, angled handles, finger rests, but they never remove asymmetry, because removing it breaks the system. So the next time you pick up scissors, look at the handles, one big, one small. That's not style, that's not tradition, that's anatomy, that's physics, that's efficiency. The scissors aren't designed around the blade, they're designed around you, your fingers, your thumb, your motion, your strength. And that's why this simple tool hasn't changed in centuries. Because when a design perfectly fits the human body, there's nothing left to improve. It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference. Now watch this, because this next one might actually surprise you. Take a look at the pen you're holding right now. Not the ink, not the clip. Look at the cap. If you check closely, you'll notice something strange. There's a tiny hole at the very top. Most people assume it's there for something simple, maybe airflow, maybe ink pressure, maybe even just design. But here's the surprising truth. That tiny hole exists for a much more serious reason, a reason connected to real accidents, emergency rooms, and a design change that has quietly saved countless lives. Because for decades, pen caps caused a dangerous problem that almost nobody expected, especially for children. And the solution engineers eventually came up with was surprisingly simple, just one tiny hole. But that tiny hole completely changed the safety of one of the most common objects on Earth. So today we're uncovering the hidden story behind a design detail millions of people see every day. But almost nobody understands. Why do pens have a hole in the cap? Once you notice the hole on a pen cap, you start seeing it everywhere. Ballpoint pens, school pens, office pens. Many of them include this small opening at the top. But here's something interesting. It doesn't actually help the pen write. Ink flow happens through the tip, not the cap. So the hole has nothing to do with writing performance. And it's not there to stop ink from drying either. In fact, some expensive pens don't even include this feature at all. So clearly the hole serves a different purpose. To understand why it exists, we have to go back to a problem that started appearing in the 1970s and 1980s. A problem that doctors and safety experts began noticing more frequently. It involves something surprisingly common: children chewing on pen caps. Think about how often people put pen caps in their mouths. Students do it while studying. Office workers do it while thinking. Kids do it constantly. For decades, this seemed completely harmless, until doctors began noticing a disturbing pattern. Children were occasionally accidentally inhaling pen caps. Instead of swallowing them normally, the caps could slip into the airway. When this happened, the cap could block the throat and prevent air from reaching the lungs. And because pen caps were often solid plastic, they could create a complete airway blockage. This type of choking incident can become life-threatening within minutes. Emergency responders began reporting cases where pen caps became lodged in a child's throat. Sometimes the object could be removed, but sometimes it couldn't. And tragically, several fatal accidents occurred. These incidents caught the attention of safety organizations and product designers. Because the problem wasn't just about pens, it was about how small everyday objects can become unexpected hazards, and designers began asking an important question. Could a pen cap be redesigned to make these accidents less deadly? In the early 1990s, safety groups and manufacturers began studying choking hazards more seriously. They discovered something important. When a small object blocks the airway completely, the body has no way to breathe around it. Even a few seconds without oxygen can become dangerous. But if there is even a tiny passage for air, the situation becomes much less severe. That small airflow can give emergency responders time to help. So engineers began experimenting with different solutions. They tested cap shapes, they tested materials. But one idea stood out because it was incredibly simple. What if the pen cap included a small hole? If someone accidentally inhaled the cap, the hole could allow air to pass through. Even though the airway was partially blocked, the person might still be able to breathe. That extra airflow could mean the difference between a medical emergency and a fatal accident. And that tiny design change quickly became one of the most important safety improvements in everyday products. This small opening became known as a ventilation hole. Its purpose is simple. If a pen cap becomes stuck in someone's throat, the hole creates a small channel for air. That airflow helps keep oxygen moving to the lungs. Even a limited amount of breathing can keep someone conscious longer. This gives rescuers precious time to remove the object. Manufacturers began adding these holes to many pen caps as a precaution. In some countries, safety guidelines now recommend this design for pens intended for children. One of the most famous examples comes from B, one of the world's largest pen manufacturers. BAC redesigned their pen caps to include a hole that allows air to pass through even if the cap becomes lodged in the throat. It's a tiny feature most people never notice, but it represents a major shift in product safety thinking. Instead of assuming accidents won't happen, designers began planning for what happens when they do. At first glance, it might seem impossible that such a tiny hole could make a difference. But the human body needs surprisingly little airflow to maintain oxygen levels for short periods. Even a narrow passage can allow enough air to pass for breathing. This is similar to how emergency breathing masks work. They don't provide large amounts of oxygen. They simply ensure some airflow continues. In choking situations, partial airflow dramatically increases survival chances. Doctors refer to this as a partial airway obstruction instead of a complete blockage. And partial obstructions are much easier to manage in emergencies, so that small hole in the pen cap acts like a miniature safety valve. It transforms a potentially fatal blockage into a situation where breathing might still be possible, all from a design change that costs manufacturers almost nothing. Interestingly, not every pen cap has this hole. There are a few reasons for that. Some pens use very large caps, which are less likely to become lodged in the airway. Others use clip designs that already create gaps for airflow. And luxury pens sometimes prioritize aesthetics over standardized cap shapes. However, many everyday pens, especially those used in schools, include ventilation holes specifically for safety, because children are the group most at risk. Today, product safety testing has become much more strict. Many small objects are evaluated for choking hazards before they reach the market, and the pen cap hole remains one of the simplest and most effective solutions ever introduced. The next time you pick up a pen, take a look at the cap. That tiny hole might seem like an insignificant design detail, but it exists because engineers studied real-world accidents and asked a powerful question. How can we make this object safer without changing how people use it? The answer turned out to be incredibly simple, just a tiny hole. It doesn't change how the pen writes, it doesn't change how it looks, but it quietly adds a layer of protection that most people never notice. And once you start looking for these hidden design choices, you realize something fascinating. Everyday objects are full of them. Small details, invisible safety features, tiny decisions that make the world work just a little bit better, all hiding in plain sight, even on something as simple as a pen. And that tiny detail changes everything. Now, this next one looks completely normal, but it's actually hiding something clever. There's a tiny hole on your phone case, and it's not there by accident. Take your phone out of your pocket, look at your case closely. Not the color, not the design. Look at the tiny cutouts, the small holes near the bottom, the little gaps near the camera, the strange openings you've probably never thought about. Now here's a question. Why are they there? At first the answer seems obvious, to access ports, but if that's true, then why are some cutouts so small? Why do some cases have extra holes you never use? And why do certain cutouts look oddly precise? Here's the surprising part. Some of those tiny openings are not just for access. They exist because without them, your phone would actually stop working properly. Your calls could sound worse, your camera could fail, your signal could weaken, and in some cases, your phone might even overheat faster. So today we're uncovering the hidden logic behind one of the smallest details on your phone that quietly affects almost everything it does. A smartphone case looks simple. It's just a protective shell, right? But modern smartphones are packed with tiny, sensitive components, and many of them rely on open space to function properly. For example, at the bottom of your phone, you'll usually find a speaker, a microphone, a charging port, sometimes multiple sensors. Each one needs a clear path to the outside world. If a case completely covered these areas, sound would become muffled. Charging cables wouldn't fit, microphones wouldn't pick up your voice properly. But here's where it gets interesting. Even a slight misalignment in those cutouts can affect performance. That's why high-quality cases are designed with millimeter precision. Those tiny holes aren't random. They're carefully engineered to match the exact layout of your phone. But that's just the beginning. Because some cutouts exist for reasons most people never expect. Early mobile phone cases were very different. Back in the early 2000s, phones were simpler. They had fewer sensors, fewer microphones, basic speakers, and large, obvious buttons. So cases didn't need to be precise. Many were just simple plastic shells. Some even covered parts of the phone completely, and it didn't matter much, because those phones didn't rely heavily on external interaction. But as smartphones evolved, everything changed. Phones became thinner, more powerful, and packed with advanced technology. Suddenly, devices included multiple microphones for noise cancellation, high-quality stereo speakers, advanced camera systems, face recognition sensors, antennas hidden inside the body, and all of these components needed clear, unobstructed access. This forced case designers to rethink everything. A case could no longer just protect the phone. It had to cooperate with it. It had to become part of the system, and that's when small, precise cutouts became essential. But one particular problem made these cutouts even more important than expected. Here's something most people don't realize. Your phone doesn't just interact with things you can see, it constantly interacts with things you can't see. Sound waves, radio signals, heat. And these invisible elements are surprisingly easy to block. Let's take microphones. Modern smartphones use multiple microphones placed in different locations. Some are so small they look like tiny pinholes. If a case blocks even one of them, your voice can sound distorted during calls. Noise cancellation can fail. Now consider antennas. Your phone is constantly sending and receiving signals. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular networks. If a case interferes with these signals, you might notice weaker reception or slower speeds. Then there's heat. Smartphones generate heat while charging or running apps. If that heat gets trapped, performance drops. Battery life suffers. So engineers had a challenge. How do you protect the phone without blocking everything it needs to function? The answer wasn't bigger openings, it was smarter ones. At first you might think, why not just make bigger holes? That would solve everything, right? Actually, no. Bigger cutouts create new problems. They reduce protection, expose more of the phone to damage, and make the case weaker. So designers had to find a balance: maximum protection, minimum interference. This is where precision becomes critical. Every cutout is carefully placed to match exact microphone positions, speaker direction, camera alignment, sensor locations. Even the shape of the cutout matters. Some are circular, some are oval, some are long slits. Each shape is chosen based on how the component works. Like speakers often use longer openings to allow sound to spread. Microphones use tiny holes to focus sound input. Camera cutouts are designed to avoid blocking light. This level of detail turns a simple case into a precision-engineered accessory. But here's the most surprising part. Some cutouts aren't for hardware at all. They exist purely for human behavior. Think about how you hold your phone. Sometimes with one hand, sometimes two, sometimes sideways while watching videos. Now notice where your fingers naturally rest, often right near important components. It's surprisingly easy to accidentally cover microphones, speakers, even camera lenses. Case designers study these behaviors carefully. They observe how people grip phones, where fingers apply pressure, which areas get blocked most often. Then they design cutouts to reduce interference. For example, slightly raised edges around cutouts can prevent your fingers from covering them. Strategic spacing can guide your grip without you realizing it. Even the texture around cutouts can influence how you hold the phone. This is called behavioral design. Instead of forcing you to change how you use your phone, the design quietly adjusts around you. So those tiny cutouts aren't just technical, they're also psychological. They subtly guide your interaction, helping your phone work better without you even noticing. Modern smartphones are more complex than ever. Today's devices include multiple microphones, sometimes 3 or more, advanced camera systems with multiple lenses, face recognition sensors, 5G antennas, wireless charging coils, and each new feature introduces new design challenges. For example, 5G signals are more sensitive to interference, so cases must avoid blocking antenna zones. Camera systems are larger and more precise, so cutouts must be perfectly aligned to avoid shadows or distortion. Even wireless charging requires careful design. Some cases include hidden gaps or thinner areas to allow energy to pass through efficiently. As phones evolve, cases become more sophisticated. What used to be a simple accessory is now a carefully engineered extension of the device. And those tiny cutouts? They've become more important than ever. The next time you hold your phone, take another look at those tiny cutouts. They may seem like small, insignificant details, but they're doing something remarkable. They're allowing your phone to hear clearly, speak clearly, stay connected, stay cool, capture perfect images, all while being protected. It's a perfect example of hidden design, where the smallest features solve the biggest problems. And once you start noticing details like this, you begin to see everyday objects differently. Because behind even the tiniest hole, there's often a much bigger story. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share it with someone who'd love this, and drop a comment below. It really helps us keep creating more videos like this for you. Your support means everything to the Daily Object team. And that's why it works so well. But you've probably seen this next one 100 times, without ever noticing what it's really doing. If phone cameras were flat, your photos would look terrible. Place your phone on a flat table, now tap it lightly. Notice something? It doesn't sit flat, it wobbles. And the reason is sitting right there on the back, that raised camera bump. It's one of the most obvious design features on modern phones. And honestly, it feels a little annoying. It collects dust, it scratches easily, it makes your phone uneven. So why is it there? Why would companies design something that sticks out on a device we carry everywhere? Shouldn't the camera be flat, clean, seamless? Here's the strange part. This flaw isn't a mistake. In fact, it's one of the most important parts of your phone. Because that tiny bump is hiding something much bigger, something that completely changed how phone cameras work. And once you see it, you'll never look at your phone the same way again. Here's a simple truth most people don't realize. Better photos require more physical space, not better software, not just AI, actual space. Inside your phone's camera are multiple layers, lenses, sensors, stabilization systems, all stacked together, and each of these parts needs distance to work properly. But phones are designed to be ultra-thin. That creates a conflict. Thin phone, thick camera. So engineers had two choices: make the entire phone thicker or let the camera stick out. And they chose the bump. But that's just the surface of the story, because the real reason goes much deeper, all the way down to how cameras actually capture light. To understand why camera bumps exist, we need to understand one simple idea. Photography is all about light. A camera works by capturing light through a lens and projecting it onto a sensor. The more light it captures, the better the image. That's why professional cameras have big lenses. They need space to bend and focus light properly. Inside those lenses, light travels through multiple glass elements. Each one adjusts focus, sharpness, and depth. Now imagine trying to shrink all of that into a device that fits in your pocket. That's exactly what smartphone engineers had to do. But here's the problem. When you make a camera thinner, you reduce the distance light can travel, and that reduces image quality. So to keep improving photos, engineers needed more room inside the camera system, and that's when the bump started to appear. Modern smartphones are incredibly crowded inside. Every millimeter is packed with battery, processor, speakers, antennas. There's almost no empty space. Now add a high-quality camera system into that. It simply doesn't fit, especially as cameras became more advanced. Phones started adding multiple lenses, optical zoom, image stabilization. Each feature requires extra components, extra thickness, extra room, but users still want thin phones. Sleek, lightweight, easy to hold. So engineers faced a tough compromise. They couldn't expand inward, so they expanded outward. That outward expansion is the camera bump. That bump isn't empty space, it's packed with advanced technology. Inside it, you'll often find optical image stabilization. This system physically moves the lens to reduce blur when your hand shakes. That requires tiny motors, and those motors need space. Some phones even use periscope lenses. These bend light sideways inside the phone to create real optical zoom. It's like fitting a miniature telescope into your device. Without the bump, these features wouldn't exist, and without those features, your photos would look very different. So what feels like a design flaw is actually a performance upgrade. But here's where things get even more interesting, because the bump isn't just about function, it's also about perception. Take a look at modern smartphones. The camera bump isn't hidden anymore, it's emphasized. Big lenses, metal rings, glossy finishes. Why? Because the camera has become the most important feature of a phone. People don't upgrade for calls, they upgrade for photos. So companies highlight the camera visually. The bump becomes a symbol. It says, this phone takes better pictures. Even if you don't understand the technology, your brain associates bigger lenses with better quality. It's similar to how large speakers suggest powerful sound, or big engines suggest faster cars. This is called visual signaling. The design communicates performance. So the bump isn't just tolerated, it's marketed. If you compare older phones to modern ones, you'll notice a clear trend. Early smartphones had flat backs, small cameras, limited quality. Then cameras improved, and the bump appeared. Over time, it grew. More lenses, bigger sensors, more features. Today, some phones have entire camera islands on the back, and interestingly, users have accepted it. What once felt like a flaw now feels normal, even expected. But engineers are still trying to solve the problem, because ideally, they still want cameras to be flat. The camera bump might not last forever. Engineers are already working on new solutions. Some phones are experimenting with under-display cameras, liquid lenses that change shape, advanced computational photography. These technologies aim to reduce the need for physical space, But for now, physics still wins. Better light capture requires depth, and depth requires space, so until a breakthrough changes that, the bump is here to stay. So the next time your phone wobbles on a table, or the camera bump annoys you, remember this: that tiny raised section is the reason your phone can capture stunning photos. It's not a flaw, it's a compromise. A trade-off between design and performance, between thinness and capability. And in that small space, engineers managed to fit something incredible. A camera powerful enough to replace devices that once filled entire bags. Which means that little bump on your phone is actually one of the most advanced pieces of technology you carry every day. And once you see that, it stops being annoying and starts becoming impressive. And that's the hidden logic behind it. But this next one is something you use every single day. And it's even more genius. Take a plastic bottle. Any bottle near you right now. Water, soda, juice, doesn't matter. Hold it in your hand and really look at it. Notice those spiral lines wrapping around the bottle. They twist, they repeat, they look intentional. But here's the strange part. Most people think they're there for grip. Some think they're decorative, others think they're just part of the mold. But the truth is much more surprising. If those spiral grooves didn't exist, this bottle might collapse, deform, or fail before it ever reached the store. No joke. That tiny design detail is silently solving multiple engineering problems at once, problems you never even realized existed. And once you see it, you'll never look at a plastic bottle the same way again. Here's a fast fact. Most people don't know a smooth plastic bottle without ribs or spirals can lose more than half of its structural strength when exposed to pressure changes, heat, or cooling. Those spiral grooves do more work than the plastic thickness itself. They are the difference between a bottle that survives and a bottle that fails. When plastic bottles first started replacing glass, the goal was simple: make packaging lighter, cheaper, safer to transport. Plastic seemed perfect. It didn't shatter. It was easy to mold. It reduced shipping weight. So early plastic bottles were designed to look clean and modern, smooth, straight, simple cylinders. And at first, everything looked fine, until reality hit. During transport, bottles collapsed. In hot trucks, they bulged outward. After cooling, they sucked inward. On shelves, they warped. In warehouses, stacked bottles crushed each other. Entire shipments were destroyed. Not because plastic was bad, but because plastic behaves very differently from glass. Glass is rigid. Plastic is flexible. And flexibility without control becomes failure. Manufacturers were losing millions, so engineers were brought in to solve one question: how do we make thin plastic behave like a strong structure without making it thicker? Plastic bottles face three invisible enemies every single day. Enemy first, internal pressure. Carbonated drinks constantly push outward. Heat causes the air inside the bottle to expand. In a smooth bottle, pressure doesn't spread evenly. It finds weak spots. Those spots bulge, and bulges turn into cracks. Enemy second, vacuum collapse. Now reverse the situation. A hot liquid cools after sealing, air contracts, pressure drops. The bottle tries to collapse inward. That crinkling sound you hear when you squeeze a bottle, that's the structure giving up control. Enemy third, vertical weight. Think about warehouses. Thousands of bottles stacked on top of each other, layer after layer. A smooth plastic wall has nothing to resist vertical compression. One weak point, and the entire stack collapses. So engineers needed a bottle that could expand safely, compress safely, recover its shape, distribute force evenly, all while using less material, not more. This is where the spiral shape enters the story. Here's the key idea. Spiral grooves act like structural reinforcement ribs, just like corrugated cardboard, reinforced concrete, truss bridges, shape adds strength. But why spirals? Why not straight vertical lines? Because straight ribs only resist force in one direction. Pressure doesn't come from one direction. It comes from everywhere. Spiral ribs wrap around the bottle, allowing stress to travel along the curve, spread across the surface, avoid concentrating at a single point. This turns the bottle into something very special. Not rigid, not weak, but elastically strong. When pressure increases, the bottle expands slightly. The ribs guide the expansion. The shape holds. When pressure drops, the ribs resist collapse. The bottle keeps its form. When you squeeze it, the grooves compress. Energy is absorbed. The bottle springs back. This is controlled flexibility. And here's the genius part most people miss. A spiral bottle can be stronger than a smooth bottle using less plastic. Not thicker walls, not heavier material, just smarter geometry. Multiply that by billions of bottles, and suddenly, shape becomes one of the biggest material-saving inventions in modern packaging. Now let's talk about something invisible, your brain. Humans subconsciously associate texture with strength, structure with safety, grooves with durability. A smooth bottle feels cheap. A ribbed bottle feels engineered, even if they're made from the same plastic. That's why you squeeze textured bottles harder, trust them not to burst, carry them more confidently. Designers know this. So the spiral shape does two jobs at once. It strengthens the bottle physically and strengthens your trust psychologically. Great design always works on both levels. Today, bottle design is highly optimized. Engineers use computer simulations to test pressure cycles, drop impacts, heat exposure, cooling contraction, long-term fatigue. Every groove angle matters. Every rib depth is calculated. That's why different drinks have different spiral patterns. Water bottles, flexible, easy to squeeze, lightweight. Soda bottles, thicker ribs, pressure-resistant, reinforced bases. Juice bottles, designed for stacking, shelf stability, shape retention, same principle. Different execution. No spiral is accidental. So the next time you open a plastic bottle, remember this. Those spirals aren't decoration. They aren't grip lines. They aren't random. They're silent engineers. They fight pressure. They prevent collapse. They save material. They reduce waste. They protect your drink. And they do it so perfectly, you never even noticed. That's the power of truly great design. And it was designed that way on purpose. And it gets even crazier, because this next one fixes a problem in a totally unexpected way.
Your zipper doesn't fail at the top. It doesn't fail in the middle. It always dies at the bottom. Why does the strongest part of your jacket fail at the very place that looks the simplest? The answer is hidden inside the tiniest piece of metal you never notice. Over 50 billion zippers are made every year, and the number one cause of failure worldwide is damage at the starting end. The zipper was invented in the early 1900s to replace buttons, which were slow, inconvenient, and broke easily. Early designs jammed constantly, especially while starting the zipper, where both sides had to align perfectly. After dozens of failed designs, engineers introduced a genius solution, a tiny part called the bottom stop and a widened starting box that guides the slider into the teeth. This solved the jamming problem, but it also created the zipper's weakest point. Think about what happens at the bottom of a zipper. Both rows of teeth needs perfect alignment. The slider must capture both sides at once. All pulling force concentrates in one tiny spot. Fabric tension is highest during closure. One wrong tug equal to uneven pressure equal to bent teeth or spread slider. Other sections share load, but the bottom carries everything first. What eyes the design logic? The hidden engineering explained as starting box and pin. The zipper works by inserting a small metal pin into a starter box, a moment where perfect geometry is required for smooth engagement. Force concentration. Physics problem, every pull creates stress exactly where the engagement begins. No other section handles as much force. Slider spread. Cheap or worn sliders slowly widen. Once slightly open, teeth no longer mesh correctly, equal to repeated unzipping. Bending damage. Once bottom teeth warp even slightly, the entire system fails. This means zippers don't break randomly. They break systematically at the stress bottleneck. People unknowingly kill zippers by yanking fast instead of guiding gently, closing jackets while seated, max tension, misaligning both sides and forcing the pull. We blame the zipper, but we basically stress test its weakest link every day. Manufacturers now use reinforced starting boxes, beefed up sliders, anti-spread alloys. High-quality brands survive longer because they strengthen the bottom area, the known failure point. But the fundamental bottleneck remains. One tiny mechanical gateway that must bear all starting loads. Your zipper doesn't fail because it's badly made. It fails because engineering demands a weakest point. And in zippers, the weakest point is exactly where everything begins. One tiny component, one unstoppable stress point. One everyday engineering lesson hiding in plain sight.
Sounds simple, right? But here's where it gets interesting, because this next object solves a problem you didn't even know existed. You think chip companies are scamming you, but the truth is way more surprising. You grab a bag of chips, it looks big, full, satisfying, you tear it open, and suddenly, it feels like something is wrong. Half the bag is empty. Just air. You shake it, you look inside again. Maybe the chips are hiding at the bottom, but no, it's mostly air, and in that moment, almost everyone has the same thought. Did I just get scammed? Because it feels like you paid for a full bag, but only got half. And here's the strange part. This isn't a mistake, it's not a packaging error, it's not even random. Every chip bag is designed this way, on purpose. But why? Why would companies risk making customers feel cheated? Why not just fill the bag completely? Because that empty space inside the bag is doing something far more important than you think. And without it, your chips might not survive the journey at all. Here's a fact most people don't know. That air inside your chip bag isn't actually air, it's nitrogen gas. And that changes everything, because regular air contains oxygen, and oxygen is the enemy of chips. It causes staleness, loss of crunch, flavor breakdown. So instead of sealing chips with normal air, manufacturers flush the bag with nitrogen. This process is called modified atmosphere packaging. Nitrogen protects the chips, keeps them fresh, keeps them crispy, and prevents them from going stale too quickly. So that empty space inside the bag is actually a protective shield. But that's only part of the story, because even with nitrogen, why does the bag still look so empty? Before your chips reach your hands, they go on a long journey, from factory to warehouse, to truck, to store, to shelf. Along the way, they face pressure from every direction. Boxes stacked on top of each other, bumpy roads during transport, workers moving packages around. If the bag were completely full, the chips would be crushed, broken into tiny pieces. By the time you opened it, you'd have crumbs instead of chips. So that empty space inside the bag acts like a cushion, a soft buffer that absorbs pressure. It protects the chips from being destroyed. Think of it like a pillow. Without it, the chips wouldn't survive. But here's the twist. Protection isn't the only reason companies use large bags. There's another reason. And it has nothing to do with physics. Let's imagine two bags of chips. One is small and tightly packed. The other is large but half full. Which one feels more valuable? Most people choose the larger bag, even if both contain the same amount of chips. This is called a size perception bias. Your brain associates bigger packaging with more value, even when it's not true. So companies design bags to look larger than necessary, because larger packaging attracts attention, stands out on shelves, feels like a better deal. This doesn't mean companies are trying to trick you illegally. In many countries, the actual weight of the chips is clearly labeled, but visually, your brain still reacts to size first, and that creates a powerful psychological effect. But there's still one more layer to this design, and it's something you probably never noticed. Have you ever noticed the sound a chip bag makes? That loud, crinkly, crunchy noise. It's not accidental. That sound is part of the experience. Studies have shown something surprising. The sound of food packaging can actually influence how food tastes. Louder, crisp sounds make chips feel fresher and crunchier. And guess what? A slightly inflated bag creates more of that sound. More air, more movement, more noise. So when you open a chip bag and hear that satisfying crinkle, your brain instantly thinks these chips are fresh, even before you taste them. It's a subtle psychological trick, but it works. And combined with everything else, it turns a simple snack into a carefully engineered experience. Now you might be thinking, okay, but isn't this misleading? Surprisingly, there are laws about this. In many countries, packaging is allowed to have empty space, but only if there's a valid reason. And in the case of chips, there are 3 accepted reasons: protection during transport, preservation using nitrogen, packaging requirements for machinery. This means companies are not allowed to add empty space just to deceive you. The empty space must serve a purpose, and in most cases, it does. But here's the interesting part. Even though it's legal, it still feels like you're getting less. And that feeling is what keeps this question alive. At the end of the day, chip bags are a trade-off. Would you rather have a full bag of crushed chips or a half-empty bag of perfect crispy ones? That's the real choice, because reducing the air would increase damage, and removing nitrogen would reduce freshness. So companies balance 3 things: protection, freshness, visual appeal, and the result is what you see today. A bag that looks half-empty, but is carefully designed to deliver the best possible product. Still, that doesn't stop the feeling, because humans don't judge value by logic. We judge it by what we see. So the next time you open a bag of chips and feel that moment of disappointment, pause for a second. Because that empty space isn't empty at all. It's protecting your chips, keeping them fresh, and even shaping how you experience their taste. What feels like less is actually doing more, and once you understand that, the bag doesn't look half empty anymore. It looks carefully designed, because sometimes the things we think are flaws are actually solutions we just don't notice. And that's the hidden logic behind everyday objects. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. But this isn't the only thing designed this way. This next one is even more surprising. Burger buns have stayed round for over 100 years, and changing their shape would break the entire burger. Pick up a burger before you taste it, before you smell it, before you even think about the flavor. Notice the shape: round bun, round patty, round tomato slices, round onion rings. It feels so natural that it barely registers as a design choice. But it is a design choice. Bread doesn't grow in circles. Meat doesn't demand curves. And nothing about fire, ovens, or hands forces food to be round. So why did this one specific shape dominate the most popular handheld food on Earth? Why didn't burgers evolve into squares, or rectangles, or long sandwich-style rolls? Because the round burger bun isn't tradition. It's not aesthetics. It's not branding. It's the result of hundreds of small physical, psychological, and industrial problems quietly solved by one simple curve. Every single day, humans eat tens of millions of burgers. Not just in restaurants, but at home, at sporting events, at roadside stalls, at school cafeterias, at backyard grills. and nearly every one of them uses the same bun geometry. If this shape caused mess, if it slipped apart, if it wasted ingredients, if it frustrated eaters, it would have been replaced immediately. Food design is brutally honest. Bad ideas don't survive scale. So the fact that the round bun didn't just survive, but became universal, tells us something important. This shape isn't just familiar, it's efficient. Before burgers existed, bread followed a different logic. Bread was made to be sliced, to be shared, to be stored. That's why loaves were long or oval. That's why flatbreads were wide and thin. That's why rolls were shaped for tearing, not gripping. Then ground meat entered everyday cooking. Minced meat cooks faster than whole cuts. It's easier to portion, and when pressed flat, it naturally spreads outward. That spreading creates a circle. Not because cooks wanted it, but because physics demanded it. Now humans faced a new challenge. How do you eat hot minced meat with your hands? Early solutions were messy. Meat on bread slices fell apart, juices soaked through. Corners collapsed under pressure. Plates solved the problem, but killed portability. The burger didn't become popular because of flavor alone. It became popular because it could be held. That forced bread to adapt. Bakers began reshaping rolls to match the meat instead of forcing the meat to fit the bread. Not square, not long, but round. A round roll naturally wrapped the edges of a circular patty. Suddenly, meat stayed centered, juices stayed inside, hands stayed cleaner. This wasn't elegance, it was survival. The burger was evolving from a meal into a system. Eating with your hands looks simple, but mechanically, it's chaotic. Your grip applies uneven pressure. Your thumbs push inward. Your fingers pull upward. Gravity pulls downward. If food has weak points, it fails. Square buns introduce corners. Corners concentrate force. Force creates tearing. That's why square bread collapses first at the edges. Rectangular buns shift weight unevenly. One side overloads, the other side empties. Round buns have no corners. Pressure distributes evenly around the circumference. That's not opinion, that's physics. Now consider rotation. Humans don't eat straight down. We rotate food instinctively to find better bite angles. A round bun allows infinite rotation without changing structure. A square bun forces alignment. Once misaligned, collapse accelerates. The round bun adapts to you, not the other way around. Now let's talk about heat and moisture. Hot food releases steam. Steam seeks the coolest surface. If moisture condenses inside bread, texture dies. The domed top bun isn't decorative. It creates a heat gradient. Steam rises, moves outward, escapes gradually. The flat bottom bun acts as a structural base. It absorbs juices without collapsing. Two different shapes, one coordinated system. Even baking favors circles. Round buns bake evenly. No corners overcook. No edges harden prematurely. Uniform softness means predictable bites. Predictability is comfort. Comfort drives repeat behavior. Your brain loves circles. Evolution trained us to fear sharp edges. Teeth, claws, thorns. Round objects feel safe. That matters when food is involved. A round bun lowers subconscious resistance. It feels approachable. There's also perception math. Round objects appear smaller than square objects of equal volume. That allows larger portions without triggering guilt or intimidation. Your brain thinks, this is reasonable. Symmetry adds trust. Even messy burgers look intentional when centered in a circle. Trust improves enjoyment. Enjoyment creates habit. Habit creates culture. Once fast food scaled, the round bun locked in. Machines portion dough into circles effortlessly. Slicers cut horizontally, wrappers fold cleanly, grills, trays, packaging, all optimized around the circle. Changing the bun shape would require redesigning the entire system. Systems don't change unless forced, and the round bun never failed badly enough to justify change. So it stayed. Look at a bun closely. Notice the soft taper at the edges. That taper compresses under bite pressure, sealing contents inward. no sharp tear lines. Even sesame seeds increase friction, reducing slip. Nothing is random. So why are burger buns round? Not because it looks nice, but because hands apply pressure unevenly, because steam needs direction, because rotation matters, because psychology matters, because systems resist change. The bun isn't shaped for bread, it's shaped for you. And if this much intelligence is baked into something you eat without thinking, what else around you is quietly engineered to fit your life without ever asking for credit? Most people never realize this, so here's a quick challenge. Can you guess why this next one exists? A pizza is round, perfectly round. But the box it arrives in is always a square. Not a circle, not a triangle, not even a rectangle. A square. And here's the strange part. This design hasn't changed in over 100 years, in a world where everything gets redesigned. Why did this stay the same? Because the square pizza box isn't a coincidence. It's one of the smartest everyday designs ever created. Every single year, more than 3 billion pizza boxes are used worldwide. That's billions of boxes designed, manufactured, folded, stacked, shipped, filled, delivered, opened, thrown away, and replaced again tomorrow. If this design wasted money, if it damaged pizza, if it slowed delivery, it would have disappeared decades ago. But it didn't. Instead, the square pizza box became global, from New York to Tokyo, from street shops to frozen aisles, which tells us one thing: this shape solves more problems than you realize. To understand the pizza box, we have to go back to a time when pizza didn't need one. Originally, pizza wasn't something you took home. It was something you ate immediately. In early pizza culture, especially in Italy, pizza was sold hot, wrapped loosely, and eaten on the street. There was no concept of delivery, but when pizza spread to other countries, especially the United States, something changed. People wanted convenience. They wanted pizza at home, at parties, at offices, late at night. And suddenly, pizza had a new enemy: distance. Hot pizza placed inside anything begins to release steam. Steam turns into moisture. Moisture destroys texture. Early restaurants tried everything: paper bags soaked through. Tin foil trapped heat and created condensation. Wooden boxes were heavy and expensive. Metal containers ruined the crust. The challenge wasn't just holding pizza, it was preserving it just long enough. The container had to protect the pizza, keep it warm, prevent sogginess, be cheap, be stackable, be fast to assemble. No design did all of that until cardboard entered the picture. Cardboard was light, cheap, foldable. But now came the big question: what shape should the box be? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Pizza is round, so the box should be round too. But reality isn't that simple. Fresh pizza is extremely hot. Hot food releases moisture in the form of steam. When steam hits a cool surface, it turns into water. If that water drips back onto the pizza, the crust becomes soft, soggy, and ruined. So the box needed to do something counterintuitive. It had to trap heat while letting moisture escape. Round containers are terrible at this. A round box seals evenly around the pizza, trapping steam uniformly. There's nowhere for moisture to escape. But a square box? A round pizza only touches a square box at a few points. That creates air pockets. Those tiny gaps allow steam to move upward, condense on the lid, and slowly escape instead of soaking the crust. The shape itself manages moisture. But there's another problem most people never consider: manufacturing. Cardboard starts as flat sheets, straight sheets. Cutting squares is efficient. Cutting circles creates waste. A round box requires more material, more cuts, more time. Weaker folds. A square box can be cut, folded, and locked together in seconds. In fast food, seconds matter. The square pizza box is a masterclass in industrial design. One flat sheet, a few folds, no glue. That's it. The lid locks using tension. The walls support weight from stacking. The corners absorb pressure during transport. And here's the clever part. Those folded corners aren't airtight. They create microscopic ventilation points. Not enough to cool the pizza, just enough to prevent condensation buildup. The box doesn't fight physics, it works with it. Even the height of the box matters. Too low, and the cheese sticks to the lid. Too high, and heat escapes too quickly. Over decades, the dimensions were quietly optimized. Not by one designer, but by thousands of restaurants, failures, and adjustments. The final result looks simple. But it's not. It's a system refined by real-world use. Now let's talk about something less obvious. Your brain. When you open a pizza box, you're not just accessing food, you're experiencing a reveal. The square lid opens upward like a stage curtain. The pizza is centered, framed. Your brain instantly registers, this is complete, this is meant to be shared, this feels generous. Psychologically, squares represent stability and reliability. Circles feel delicate, triangles feel aggressive. A square box signals this will not tip over, this will hold together, this is safe. Even the way slices are arranged matters. A square box leaves empty space in the corners, making the pizza feel larger than it is. That's a known perception trick. More visible space equals more perceived value. A round box would feel tighter, crowded, claustrophobic. The square creates breathing room for both the pizza and your mind. This is why a square pizza box feels right, even though it shouldn't. Over time, pizza boxes evolved, but only in details. Grease-resistant linings, corrugated bottoms, small ventilation holes, raised supports in the center. But the shape never changed. Why? Because the pizza box isn't just designed for pizza. It's designed for delivery bags, car seats, shelves, freezers, trash bins, recycling systems. The entire world is built on right angles. Trucks are rectangular. Warehouses are rectangular. Storage systems are rectangular. The square box fits into everything seamlessly. Changing its shape would break the entire system. So the design stayed, because it already worked. So why are pizza boxes square? Not because pizza is round, but because the world is straight-edged. Because cardboard folds better. Because steam needs an escape. Because stacking matters. Because psychology matters. Because systems matter. The pizza box isn't designed for pizza. It's designed for reality. And the next time you open one, pause for a moment. Because if something this ordinary hides this much intelligence, what else around you have you never questioned? There's a reason plates aren't square, and it has nothing to do with style. Look at your plate. Not your phone, not the screen, your plate. It's round. Almost every plate you've ever eaten from is round. Restaurants, homes, hotels, even ancient plates. But why? Why not square plates? Or triangle plates? Or hexagons? We live in a world full of sharp angles and straight lines. Yet when it comes to food, we almost always choose circles. And here's the surprising part. It's not just tradition, it's not just style, and it's definitely not accidental. The round plate exists because it solves multiple problems at once, from human behavior to physics to survival. And once you understand why, you'll never look at a plate the same way again. When researchers tested square plates and round plates under the same conditions, round plates chipped less, spilled less, stacked better, and lasted longer. The shape alone changed everything. Plates weren't always ceramic. Before plates, humans ate from leaves, stones, wooden slabs, bowls carved from clay. Early eating surfaces were crude and uneven. But as societies developed, something interesting happened. Across different cultures, across different continents, across different time periods, the same shape kept appearing. Not squares, circles, ancient clay plates, metal plates, stone plates, wooden plates, Even cultures that never contacted each other ended up choosing the same shape. That's a huge clue. Because when completely separate civilizations arrive at the same design, it usually means the design is functionally superior. So the question isn't, why did we choose round plates? The real question is, what problems does a round plate solve that other shapes don't? Eating seems simple. But plates deal with more stress than you think. They face 4 constant problems. Problem first, spillage. Food moves, liquids spread, sauces slide, rice rolls, vegetables shift, corners create traps. When food hits a corner, it piles up, spills, or tips over. A circle has no corners. Food moves smoothly around the edge instead of crashing into angles. Problem second, weak points. Corners are structural enemies. In engineering, stress concentrates at sharp edges. That's why cracks start at corners. A square plate chips faster, cracks sooner, breaks unevenly. A round plate distributes force evenly. Drop it, bump it, stack it. No single point takes the full impact. Problem third, handling and grip. Think about how you hold a plate. You don't grab corners, you grip the edge. A circular edge allows even grip, easy rotation, balanced weight. Square plates force your hand into awkward positions. Problem fourth, storage and stacking. Plates are stacked constantly. Corners misalign, edges catch, stacks tilt, round plates self-align. They center themselves naturally. That's not luck. That's geometry. Here's the core reason round plates win. The circle is the most efficient shape for distributing force. That's why wheels are round, gears are round, pipes are round, coins are round. No corners, no weak stress points. Strength without thickness. A round plate can be thinner than a square plate and still be stronger, because stress flows evenly along the curve. Square plates need thicker material, reinforced corners, more weight. Round plates don't. Rotation and movement. Food doesn't move in straight lines. Liquids swirl, hands rotate, forks scoop in arcs. A round plate matches natural human motion. You rotate food toward you. You scoop along curves. You scrape edges in circular motion. Square plates fight this movement. Round plates cooperate. Manufacturing advantage. Round plates are easier to make. Spinning clay on a wheel naturally creates circles. Symmetry is built in. Square plates require cutting, shaping, and extra steps, which means more time, more cost, more breakage. Once again, the circle wins. Now, here's something fascinating. Round plates change how much you eat. Studies show food looks more abundant on round plates, meals appear balanced, portions feel complete. Square plates make food feel crowded or messy. Your brain prefers symmetry. Circles feel calm, natural, safe. Sharp corners feel aggressive. That's why clocks are round, faces are round, plates are round. Your brain relaxes when it sees curves. That relaxation affects appetite, enjoyment, and satisfaction. So the round plate doesn't just hold food, it shapes your eating experience. So why do square plates exist at all? Simple. Visual novelty. Restaurants use square plates to look modern, stand out, signal luxury. But notice something. Square plates are thicker, heavier, used carefully, rarely stacked high. They're style first. Round plates are function first. That's why homes, cafeterias, airlines, hospitals, and mass dining still rely on round plates. Even modern plate designs often fake corners, but hide a circular eating surface inside. The circle never left, it just adapted. So the next time you eat a meal and you place food on a round plate, remember this. That shape wasn't chosen randomly. It wasn't tradition. It wasn't habit. It was physics. It was psychology. It was efficiency. It was survival. The round plate spills less, breaks less, stacks better, feels better, and works with how humans move. And that's why, after thousands of years, the circle still wins. If something as simple as a plate hides this much logic, imagine what else you've never questioned. Pretty smart, right? But wait till you see this, because this next one will completely change how you see it. Take a spoon, any spoon, metal, plastic, wooden, from your kitchen, a restaurant, a flight, a hospital. They all look almost identical. Same curve, same depth, same gentle bend. But here's the strange part. No one ever taught humanity how to design spoons. No global meeting, no universal rulebook, no single inventor. Yet across cultures, continents, and centuries, every spoon evolved into almost the exact same shape. That's not coincidence. That's hidden design intelligence. So today, we're asking a question almost nobody thinks about. Why do spoons have that perfect curve? If you flatten a spoon just slightly, eating becomes harder. If you deepen it too much, food spills. If you sharpen the edge, it hurts your mouth. And if you change the angle by just a few degrees, the spoon suddenly feels wrong. That curve you've never noticed? It's mathematically close to the optimal shape for the human mouth, wrist, and tongue combined. And it took thousands of years to get right. The earliest spoons weren't metal, they were shells. Pieces of wood, carved stones. Early humans didn't design spoons, they found shapes that already worked. A curved shell could scoop water, a hollowed stick could carry soup, a smooth stone felt safe in the mouth, and slowly, generation after generation, humans copied the shapes that worked best. Bad shapes disappeared, good shapes survived. This wasn't invention. This was design evolution, and over centuries, something fascinating happened. Different civilizations, who never met each other, started making spoons that looked shockingly similar. Why? Because the human body is the same everywhere. Same lips, same tongue, same wrist rotation. And the spoon began adapting to us. Let's break down the real problem a spoon has to solve. A spoon must carry liquid without spilling, fit comfortably inside the mouth, avoid hurting teeth, lips, and tongue, work with minimal wrist effort, function for children and adults, be usable without looking, work while hot, cold, thick, or thin. That's not easy. In fact, most shapes fail, flat objects fail, deep cups fail, sharp edges fail, perfect circles fail, so the spoon didn't become curved for beauty. It became curved because every other option was worse. Now let's decode the spoon's shape. A. The bowl curve. The spoon bowl is not a perfect half circle. It's slightly elongated. Why? Because liquids move. When you lift soup, gravity pulls it backward. That elongated curve slows the movement, reducing spills before the spoon reaches your mouth. Too shallow, spills. Too deep, hard to sip. The spoon bowl sits exactly between control and capacity. B. The edge radius. Run your tongue along a spoon edge. It doesn't feel sharp. That's intentional. Human lips and tongues are extremely sensitive. The spoon edge is rounded to avoid microcuts, reduce pressure points, slide smoothly past lips, trigger comfort signals in the brain. A sharper edge increases eating fatigue. Your brain notices, even if you don't. The angle bend. Look at the side profile. The bowl isn't straight, it tilts upward. That angle matches the natural wrist rotation during eating. Without it, you'd need to twist your wrist unnaturally. The spoon literally meets your mouth halfway. That's why eating feels effortless. D. The handle thickness. Too thin, uncomfortable grip. Too thick, loss of control. The handle thickness sits within the average finger pinch range. It allows fine control without tension. Again, designed around the body. Now comes the part nobody talks about. Spoons don't just work physically, they work psychologically. Comfort bias. Humans associate rounded shapes with safety. Sharp shapes trigger danger signals. That's why spoons feel comforting, while knives feel threatening. Even babies prefer curved utensils. Trust in feeding. The spoon is one of the first objects we ever trust. Someone brings it toward our face. we open our mouth. That creates a deep psychological association, curved equal to safe. That's why spoons appear in hospitals, childcare, and care homes. The shape reduces subconscious fear, taste perception. Studies show rounded spoons make food taste sweeter, sharp-edged utensils increase bitterness. Your brain uses shape to predict flavor. The spoon's curve doesn't just carry food, it changes how food tastes. Today, spoons look unchanged. But that's misleading. Modern spoons are optimized for machine manufacturing, dishwashers, heat resistance, cultural eating styles, portion control, Asian soup spoons, deeper bowl, flatter base, dessert spoons, shallower, wider curve, baby spoons, extra rounded edges, smaller volume, different needs, same underlying logic. Because the original curve was already near perfect. Here's the part that changes how you see everything. The spoon wasn't designed by a genius. It was designed by millions of failures. Every uncomfortable shape disappeared. Every painful edge vanished. What survived was the shape that worked best with the human body. So the next time you hold a spoon, remember this. You're holding thousands of years of silent engineering, shaped by your mouth, your wrist, your brain, refined by evolution, not invention. And if something this ordinary hides this much intelligence, imagine what else you've never questioned. It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference. Now watch this, because this next one might actually surprise you.
Pick up any coin. Look at the edge. Why is it covered in tiny ridges instead of being smooth? Those lines aren't decoration. They were invented to stop one of the biggest scams in history. Coin ridges are called reading. They exist because people used to literally steal money by shaving coins. Hundreds of years ago, coins were made from real gold and silver. People figured out a trick. Gently file off tiny amounts of metal, keep the dust, spend the lighter coin again, no one noticed. Until economies started collapsing. Governments needed a way to stop invisible theft. The crime was nearly impossible to detect. Coins still looked normal. Weight loss was tiny. Merchants couldn't check every payment, so cheaters could steal precious metal, reuse the same coins, slowly drain entire economies. The ridge solution of the problems are instant tamper detection. Ridges break when a coin is shaved. A damaged edge equal to proof of theft. Standardized minting. Ridges could only be stamped by official mint machines. Fake coins lacked clean uniform lines, durability, and grip. Ridges also made coins easier to stack, count, and grip. The edges turned coins into self-checking security devices. The ridges created visible trust. Merchants didn't need tools. Their eyes became detectors. Clean edge equal to honest coin, broken edge equal to cheating. That tiny detail restored confidence in money itself. Even today, when coins are cheap metals, ridges remain standard worldwide. Machines still use edges to detect fakes. Many coins add special groove patterns for extra security. The old anti-cheat trick still works centuries later. Those tiny ridges aren't decoration. They're the scars of history's biggest financial scam. One small design detail, one massive problem solved, one invisible theft that changed coins forever.
And that's why it works so well. But you've probably seen this next one 100 times without ever noticing what it's really doing. Every banknote you've ever touched shares the same strange feature. It's a rectangle. And that decision wasn't random. Take a banknote out of your pocket. Look at it. It doesn't matter which country you're in. It doesn't matter which language you speak. It doesn't matter how rich or poor the country is. Almost every paper currency on Earth has the same shape, a rectangle. But here's the strange part. There is no law that says money has to be rectangular. So why is it? Why not square? Why not round? Why not any shape at all? This isn't an accident. This shape survived hundreds of years, thousands of failed designs, and billions of daily hand-to-hand exchanges. And once you see the reason, you'll never hold money the same way again. Before we go deeper, here's something most people have never noticed. Coins come in dozens of shapes. Triangular, round, polygonal, even with holes in the center. But paper money? Rectangular almost everywhere. From the US dollar to the euro, to Indian rupees to Japanese yen, different colors, different sizes, different designs. Same basic shape. That's not coincidence, that's survival. To understand why banknotes are rectangular, we need to go back to a time before banks. Long before ATMs, before wallets, before printing presses. The earliest paper money appeared in China over 1,000 years ago. And here's the key detail most people miss. Paper money didn't start as money. It started as receipts. Merchants would deposit heavy metal coins and receive a flat piece of paper promising value. And what shape was paper already being made in? Rectangles. Because paper itself came from flattened plant fibers, pressed and dried on rectangular frames. So from day one, money inherited the shape of paper. Not because it was ideal, but because it was available. But here's the twist. Just because something starts a certain way doesn't mean it stays that way. Thousands of designs were tested after that, and most of them failed. Imagine using money that's not rectangular. Let's say money was circular. Sounds cool, right? Now try stacking it. It rolls. Try counting it quickly. It slips. Try storing it in a wallet. Wasted space. Now imagine square money. The corners bend easily. They tear faster. They catch on each other when stacked. Now imagine irregular shapes. Good luck sorting those at a bank, or counting them by machine, or folding them without damage. Money has to survive being folded thousands of times, being counted at insane speeds, being shoved into pockets, bags, wallets, being handled by millions of people. Most shapes fail under stress. Rectangles don't. Rectangles quietly solve multiple problems at once. First, stacking efficiency. Rectangular banknotes stack perfectly. No gaps, no rolling, no wasted space. This matters because banks don't handle money one bill at a time. They handle millions. Second, folding logic. Rectangles fold cleanly in halves, thirds, or quarters. Even accidental folds tend to align with the shape. This reduces tearing and creasing damage over time. Third, machine compatibility. Counting machines rely on straight edges, predictable corners, consistent alignment. Rectangles give machines something reliable to grip, slide, scan, and count. Try designing a machine that counts circular paper accurately at high speed. It's a nightmare. Fourth, printing efficiency. Printing presses work best on rectangular sheets. Rectangles waste the least amount of material when cutting. Less waste equal to lower cost. When you print billions of notes, tiny inefficiencies become massive losses. This is the part no one talks about. Rectangular money doesn't just work better, it feels more trustworthy. Straight lines signal order, stability, control, structure. Curved or irregular shapes feel playful. Money should not feel playful. Money must feel serious, stable, reliable. Even subconsciously, people associate rectangles with documents, contracts, certificates, authority. Your brain already trusts rectangular paper. So when value is printed on it, acceptance becomes instant. No explanation needed. This psychological comfort helped rectangular banknotes spread faster than any alternative design. You might think digital payments would kill physical money design, but the opposite happened. Modern banknotes are more engineered than ever. They include microprinting, security threads, holograms, watermarks. All of these features rely on straight alignment. Rectangles make security predictable and inspectable. Even countries that changed sizes for accessibility still kept the rectangular form. Why? Because it already passed the ultimate test, time. Hundreds of years, countless redesigns, global adoption. Rectangles didn't win because they were perfect. They won because everything else failed faster. So the next time you hold a banknote, remember this: that rectangle isn't decoration. It isn't tradition. It isn't random. It's the result of centuries of invisible design pressure. Every edge exists because it worked better than the alternatives. Every corner survived because it didn't tear, jam, roll, or confuse. Money didn't become rectangular because someone chose it. It became rectangular because reality forced it to be. And if something this ordinary hides this much intelligence, imagine what else you've never questioned. And that's the hidden logic behind it. But this next one is something you use every single day. And it's even more genius.
Hold a pencil for a second. Why is it always this shape? 6 sides, never round, never square. There's a hidden reason, and it's not what you think. Every year, the world makes more than 14 billion pencils, and almost all of them follow the same hexagon design invented over 150 years ago. The story begins in the 1600s, when people first wrapped sticks of graphite in wood. But early pencils had a problem. They kept rolling off tables, falling and breaking the fragile graphite inside. Carpenters, writers, and students all complained. Manufacturers needed a shape that was still comfortable but stayed exactly where you put it. A round pencil was easy to make, but a disaster to use. It rolled constantly. It cracked the graphite. It dropped from slanted desks, and sharpening was uneven. Changing the shape wasn't about looks. It was about making writing stable. Enter the hexagon, a shape that quietly solves everything. Doesn't roll. 6 flat sides create enough friction so it stays put, even on slanted school desks. Easier to grip. Your fingers naturally form a tripod grip, and a hexagon gives 3 perfect alignment points. Cheaper to make. Wooden slabs can be cut into long hexagonal strips with 0 wasted material. Round pencils waste more wood. Stronger body. 6 edges distribute pressure evenly, protecting the graphite core from breaking inside. It's not random design. It's hidden microengineering. The shape also subtly influences behavior. A hexagonal pencil keeps your fingers in a stable position, which reduces fatigue and makes people write longer without noticing. Manufacturers realize this increased writing comfort, so students and office workers preferred hexagonal pencils without understanding why. Hexagon means effortless control. Today, mechanical pencils dominate, but the classic wooden pencil stayed the same. Even premium brands like Faber-Castell and Staedtler still keep the hexagon because it stacks perfectly during shipping, packs densely in boxes, prevents rolling in classrooms, and just feels right in your hand. The 150-year-old design has barely changed because it's already perfect. So the next time you pick up a pencil, remember, that simple 6-sided shape is not a design choice. It's a centuries-old engineering solution hiding in your hand. One everyday object, one brilliant idea, one shape that refuses to roll away.
And it was designed that way on purpose. And it gets even crazier, because this next one fixes a problem in a totally unexpected way. Look around you. Your home, your office, a cafe, a classroom, an airport waiting area. Chances are every chair you can see has 4 legs. Not 3, not 5, not one solid block, 4. It feels so normal that you've probably never questioned it. But that's exactly what makes it interesting. Because when a design shows up everywhere, across cultures, materials, and centuries, it's usually not accidental. It's optimized. And the reason behind this near-universal design has nothing to do with fashion or tradition. It involves physics, engineering logic, human psychology, and manufacturing efficiency, all working together in silence. This chair you're sitting on right now is quietly solving multiple problems at once, balancing your weight, stabilizing your movement, surviving daily abuse, and doing it all at the lowest possible cost. And it does this so well that you never notice. Today, we're going to uncover the subtle genius hiding in plain sight, right under your rear. Here's a quick fact. Most people don't realize a chair is not designed for sitting still. It's designed for constant imbalance. Humans shift their weight every few seconds. We lean back, we lean forward, we sit sideways. We drop into chairs. We push off when standing up. So a chair's real job isn't holding weight. It's controlling instability. And when designers across history tested different ways to do this, 3 legs, single bases, wide platforms, one solution kept outperforming the rest. 4 contact points with the ground. 4 legs form the smallest structure that feels stable, spreads weight evenly, recovers from movement, still stays simple. That's why 4 legs didn't just appear once, they appeared again and again, until they became the default. For most of human history, chairs weren't common objects. People sat on the ground, stones, logs, low wooden platforms. Actual chairs were rare, often reserved for leaders, elders, or royalty. If you had a chair, it meant status. But as societies grew, chairs had to change. They weren't symbols anymore. They were tools, and tools must work reliably every day for everyone. Early chairmakers experimented with many forms: solid blocks, benches, tripods, curved bases, but each design had trade-offs. Solid bases were heavy and expensive. Tripods tipped too easily when leaning. Benches lacked personal balance. Slowly, through trial and error, a pattern emerged. 4 legs offered lift from the ground, stability without excess material, balance without complex construction, no equations, no engineering degrees. Just repeated human experience. If a design failed, it disappeared. If it worked, it spread. And 4 legs worked so consistently that they survived centuries of testing, long before modern science ever explained why. Let's define the real problem a chair must solve. A chair must, 1. Hold a wide range of body weights. 2. Stay upright on imperfect floors. 3. Remain stable during movement. 4. Be cheap enough to produce at scale. That's a brutal design challenge. Because humans don't sit politely. We lean back on 2 legs, we shift sideways, we rest elbows on one side, we stand on chairs, we drop into them. Every movement pushes the chair toward tipping. So the question becomes, how do you create a structure that resists tipping without becoming bulky or expensive? 3 legs fail when weight shifts backward. More than 4 legs increase cost and wobble. Solid bases waste material. 4 legs create a wide, predictable base that catches your center of gravity before it escapes. The chair doesn't fight you, it forgives you. That forgiveness is the key. Here's the design logic that makes 4 legs special. Any object touching the ground creates a shape called a support base. As long as your body's center of gravity stays inside that shape, the chair stays upright. 3 legs form a triangle. Stable but narrow, lean too far and gravity wins. 4 legs form a rectangle or square. That shape expands the safe zone, handles forward, backward, and sideways motion, distributes load evenly. There's another hidden advantage. With 4 legs, each leg carries less stress. That means thinner materials can be used, joints last longer, minor defects don't cause collapse. This is why even cheap plastic chairs work. 4 legs tolerate mistakes. And from a design perspective, tolerance is gold. You don't need perfect craftsmanship. You don't need advanced materials. The structure itself does the work. That's not just good design, that's robust design. Now, here's something even more subtle. Four legs don't just work better. They feel better. Humans are wired to trust symmetry. When we see four evenly spaced supports, our brain immediately reads stable, safe, reliable, even before we sit. That's why experimental chairs often feel uncomfortable, even if they're perfectly engineered. Your brain doesn't want to calculate physics while relaxing. It wants instant reassurance. Four legs deliver that reassurance subconsciously. They signal balance. And when something feels safe, we relax our muscles more. That makes the chair feel more comfortable, even without cushions. So four legs don't just support your body, they support your sense of security. Of course, not all chairs have four legs today. Office chairs often have five. Bar stools may have one central column. Cantilever chairs seem to float. But notice something important. These designs only work because of stronger materials, precise manufacturing, reinforced joints, controlled environments. Four-legged chairs don't need any of that. They work on uneven floors, with cheap materials, with rough use, without maintenance. That's why they dominate homes, schools, restaurants, and public spaces. Four legs are the default because they work even when everything else goes wrong. And once a design reaches that level of reliability, it becomes invisible. So why do almost all chairs have four legs? Not because someone decided it once, but because physics, psychology, and practicality all independently arrived at the same answer. Four legs are stable enough, cheap enough, simple enough, forgiving enough. They don't demand attention, they just work. And when a design works this well, across centuries and cultures, it stops being questioned. That's the true mark of great design. The best designs don't shout, they quietly support us, every single day. If something as ordinary as a chair hides this much intelligence, imagine what else around you does the same. Sounds simple, right? But here's where it gets interesting, because this next object solves a problem you didn't even know existed.
Sit down in a modern office chair for a second. Don't focus on how soft it feels. Watch how your body moves. Your back automatically reclines slightly, almost without your permission. Why? Why don't modern chairs keep you sitting perfectly straight like old wooden chairs did? Is this tilt about comfort, style, or is something else going on? The answer is hidden inside your spine, and it explains why those stiff, upright chairs from the past were slowly destroying human posture without anyone realizing it. Here's a surprising scientific fact. The healthiest posture for long-term sitting is not upright at 90 degrees. Research shows the safest angle for your spine is actually between 100 degree and 110 degree of backward recline. That tiny lean back, which every modern chair allows, reduces pressure on spinal discs by up to 40%. In other words, the chair isn't moving backward for comfort. It's doing it for spinal survival. For most of history, chairs didn't tilt at all. They were rigid, straight wooden backs, flat seats, zero motion. People sat upright like statues, especially in schools, churches, and offices. Posture was seen as a moral trait. Sit straight equal to discipline. Lean back equal to laziness. So discomfort was essentially built into furniture design. No one focused on spinal health because people weren't sitting long enough for it to matter. Then modern life happened, office jobs appeared, students sat for hours, drivers remained seated all day. Suddenly a new health problem emerged that doctors couldn't explain: back pain epidemics, disc compression, lumbar stiffness, neck tension. Lower back injuries skyrocketed. It turned out the human body didn't evolve to sit bolt upright for 8 hours a day. Let's visualize what happens to your spine when you sit fully upright at 90 degrees. Your spine has a natural S-curve, cervical curve for your neck, thoracic curve for your upper back, lumbar curve for your lower back. But when you sit straight, your pelvis rotates backward, your lumbar curve flattens, your spine compresses vertically. Now gravity starts acting straight down the spinal column, pushing discs together like stacked pancakes. Over time, discs flatten, nerves are pinched, muscles stay tensed, pain develops. So ironically, good posture, sitting bolt upright, was actually harming people. Chairs needed to adapt to the body instead of forcing the body to adapt to chairs. This is where ergonomics enters the story. Designers discovered 3 key realities. Number 1, leaning reduces spinal compression. When you recline slightly, your body weight is redistributed. Instead of all gravity pressing downward on the spinal discs, your weight spreads into the backrest, the seat base. This lowers vertical disc compression dramatically. Picture it like lying halfway between sitting and lying down. Pressure disappears. Number 2, backward tilt restores the S-curve. A slight recline lets your lumbar spine return to its natural curve. That means vertebrae stack correctly. Muscles can relax. Blood flows normally. Your core muscles don't need to constantly hold your torso upright. The chair becomes the support system. Number 3, micro-movement prevents stiffness. Modern tilt mechanisms aren't fixed angles. They allow small movements. Rocking backward, shifting weight, minor reclines. These micro-motions pump blood flow, prevent muscle stiffness, keep joints lubricated. A motionless body becomes painful. A gently moving body stays healthy. So modern chairs tilt not to relax you, but to keep your body alive and organized. Here's the psychological twist. Your brain interprets slight recline as relaxation. But the recline isn't encouraging laziness. It's allowing your muscles to stop doing unnecessary work. When chairs were stiff, your muscles spent the day holding your torso up, clenching your core, tensing your shoulders. You didn't consciously feel strain, but after hours, pain accumulated silently. Modern chairs let muscles rest passively. That reduces cognitive fatigue too. Why? Because posture drains brain energy. Less muscle tension equal to less subconscious stress. Your chair is literally making your brain quieter so you can focus longer. Hair design changed massively after the 1970s when workplace injury lawsuits skyrocketed. Ergonomic science went mainstream. Companies realized spinal injuries were costing billions. Modern chairs now include tilt lock systems, allowing controlled recline angles, synchronized tilt, where seat and back tilt together to prevent sliding forward, adjustable lumbar supports, rebuilding the spine's S-curve dynamically, weight tension controls, so lighter and heavier users recline correctly. Luxury chairs even adjust to micro-posture shifts automatically. The chair no longer forces a static posture. It moves with your body instead of against it. Modern chairs aren't slanted backward for comfort alone. They tilt because gravity compresses the spine. Upright sitting destroys lumbar curvature. Motion protects muscles and discs. The backward angle is a hidden medical solution disguised as furniture design. So that small recline you never noticed? It's the reason your spine can survive modern life. Your chair isn't leaning back to relax you. It's leaning back to protect you. One subtle tilt, one evolutionary design correction, one invisible ally holding your spine together. hour after hour.
And once you notice it, you can't unsee it. But this isn't the only thing designed this way. This next one is even more surprising.
Look at an umbrella handle. Almost all of them curve like this. But why? A straight stick would work just fine. So why did umbrellas choose the hook shape instead? The answer isn't fashion. It's a mix of gravity, convenience, and 18th century habits. The curved umbrella handle design is over 200 years old and hasn't changed because it's still the most practical shape ever invented for everyday carrying. In 1700 to 1800s Europe, umbrellas were heavy, made of wood and oilcloth, more like walking sticks than fashion accessories. People carried them for long walks, often not in the rain, because sudden weather was common. They needed a way to carry the umbrella without gripping it constantly. So craftsmen bent the wooden handle into a hook shape, so the umbrella could hang from the arm, hook onto a belt or bag, rest on a chair or table. The problem was, a straight handle created issues. It required constant grip. It easily slipped from hands. It couldn't hang anywhere. It fell over when placed down, rain or shine. People needed a hands-free solution. Why the curve works hands-free carrying. The curve suspends the weight on your arm. No grip needed. Anti-slip. Gravity keeps the hook locked in place against your elbow. Easy storage. Curved handles hang on. Chair backs, coat racks, door handles, hooks, better balance. The curved shape counterweights the umbrella shaft and canopy. The hook shape feels polite and non-threatening, unlike a straight stick. It looks refined, like a gentleman's cane rather than a weapon. Style-reinforced usefulness. Some modern umbrellas now use straight handles for pocket umbrellas, rubber grips for sport umbrellas, but the classic curved handle still dominates because it's simply the most comfortable everyday design. Umbrellas aren't curved for style. They're curved for gravity, comfort, and hands-free convenience. One bend, one clever solution, one classic design that never needed improvement.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share it with someone who'd love this, and drop a comment below. It really helps us keep creating more videos like this for you. Your support means everything to the Daily Object team.